The last filter of this chapter is the vanishing point. This is really fun. It lets you edit images with perspective, so it allows you to move things along perspective planes in a way that looks natural. So we're going to open the file called building to start, and we're going to do some things to this as if somebody were actually renting this out. So we're going to take down these signs, we're going to add some windows, make a new sign, etc. Before entering Vanishing Point, we have to create a blank layer for the edits. Vanishing Point does not work as a smart object, so we can't change this into a smart object. So the way that we can work in a non-destructive editing way is to just make a new layer. So we're going to option click on the new layer, and that's just going to allow us to name it all in one swoop. And we're going to name this Vanishing Point. And now we have a new blank layer called Vanishing Point. That's our start. All right, with this new empty layer for our edits, with that selected, we have to enter the Vanishing Point filter. So this layer is selected, and we're going to go Filter, Vanishing Point, and a whole new window is going to pop open. This has its own set of tools we can see over on the left-hand side, and it kind of gives us a walking tutorial. It says click the four corners of a perspective plane or an object to start making this editing plane, yada yada. The tool that's selected is the Create Plane tool, so this is where we actually begin. We are going to take a look at this, and we're going to start clicking out what this perspective looks like. So this side of the building is not a flat rectangle. It actually goes away from us. It gets smaller on the left. So I'm just going to start here by clicking once, and then I'm going to go over here. I'm going to make a rectangle that follows this perspective. So I'm going to come down here and click, and then I'm going to come over here and click. And notice how it made a rectangle, but it's not even on the left and the right. It's angled down, which means it's going away. And once I click that fourth point, Photoshop makes a perspective grid for us. And a blue grid means Photoshop thinks you did a good job. You can continue working. If it's yellow, Photoshop can't see it. You need to fix your corner modes. And if it's red, something is wrong again. You need to keep tweaking these four corner points until it gives it a nice option to map off of. So the next tool that was selected for us is the Edit Plane tool, which looks like our selection tool. And that just allows us to extend this. So I'm going to go to this left middle point, and I'm going to drag it further down along the building, and you can see it's still matching the way the building goes away from us. And I'm also going to drag it up taller, up to about here. So this whole side of the building is mapped out with a perspective grid right now. Our next option is to tear off a perpendicular frame. So we need to get one going over here to the right. So to do that, we're going to hold down Command, and then we're going to hover over this middle bounding point right here. And we're going to click, and we're going to drag out to the right. And notice it's doing a pretty good job. If it isn't, don't worry, because once you click and drag that out, we can then kind of tweak it. So we can bring this down a little bit, and then we can change this far right corner point to match our roof line a little bit better. And if we need to change any of these other points to kind of get our grid looking better here. So on this side, I just followed the roof line, and I followed the right-hand side of the edge of the building here. So if yours came out looking like a normal rectangle, just tweak those bounding boxes on the far right to get it to better adjust. So we're still in this vanishing mode, and we're going to use some of the tools within here. The first one is the Marquee tool. We're going to select that, and the tip that it gives us is that we can click and drag in a plane to select an area. We can option drag a selection to copy it to a new area, or we can command drag to fill it with source image. So we have all different options here. we're going to make a marquee over this Franklin sign. And notice it's not making a normal rectangle, it's actually making it in perspective, which is great because this sign is angled. So we're going to draw a marquee over our Franklin sign, and then we're going to hold a shift. That's going to keep it from moving horizontally or vertically. And we're going to hold control, so shift and control or command, and we're going to start dragging it to the left or the right. As you can see, if I go this way, it's copying in a window from the other side, which is not what I want. So I'm just going to kind of move my cursor over to the left here to this blank area. And when I have my Franklin sign covered up, I'm going to let go of my mouse and then my two keys. Up in our option bar, we have some options to think about. So it's already feathered to 1, which looks great. The opacity is 100%, and then we have some healing options. We have luminance, and we can see that preview, or we have on. So of these 3 options, off or on seem to be the best. I kind of like what on looks like, so I'm going to turn the healing to be on. So that worked. We were able to kind of use it as the patch tool here within this Vanishing Point pop-up dialog. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put some windows on this left-hand side. So we're going to drag a marquee around the window on the right. And I'm going to get up a little bit higher to make sure I get the space above it. There we go. I don't want all that stuff though. Start over here. There we go. So I marqueed a window on a right and I've selected that. We're actually going to drag it around from this right perspective plane onto the left plane. So we're going to hold shift to keep it still, and we're going to hold the option key to do the copying. So shift and option, and we're going to start dragging, and look how it bends around the corner. Isn't that wild? And we're going to put a window over here. And when we let go of our mouse and then our keys, notice that it did some healing. It kind of made it match the lighting over there. So we've dragged it around. We need to fix a few things though. It's going the wrong way. The perspective of it is going in the wrong direction. So we're going to push the letter T to get to our transform tool, or it's this tool right over here. And with that, we're going to come up to our option bar and we're going to flop it. That's just going to turn it the other way so that we're seeing the inside of the window going away from us. That makes sense. We're also having the option here to transform it a bit so we can kind of make it match the size of the other windows here by transforming it a bit. So when we're happy with that, we've flopped it and we've transformed it, we're going to shift and then option drag to make another copy of it. Shift is going to hold it so it doesn't bounce up or down, and option drag is going to make a copy. So shift option drag to make a new window. And when we're done, we're going to deselect it, so Command D. So we just put 2 new windows over there. One other thing that we're going to do while we're in this window is we are going to add an accent stripe on the right-hand side, or the front of this building. So we're going to add a green accent stripe right over here underneath the roof line and above the windows. So the first thing we're going to do is, still within this Vanishing Point pop-up window, we're going to choose the eyedropper. And we're going to come over here and we're going to sample this green color up here at the top of the building. And notice that my brush color is now set to green. And then we're going to click on the brush tool. And we're going to set up our brush before we move on. The diameter of the brush that we're going to use is 10. The hardness is 70. So it's not a crisp line. It has a little bit of a blur or soft edge to it. Opacity is at 100, healing is off, and the brush is going to be green. The reason we kind of went with a softer brush is because over here things kind of fall out of focus as they go away from you, and a perfectly crisp brush would actually look kind of fake over here, and we don't want that. So we're going to hold down Shift and we're going to drag, of course now, there we go. We're going to drag a line out. And I think mine was laggy and that's why I got 2 of them. I just need to be more patient. There we go. We're going to drag a line out. And again, I got double lines again. See, if I'm not holding Shift, this is what I get. And if I do hold Shift and just click once, I get that. But I wanted to Shift and drag a line. There we go. Finally getting to drag a line. So I painted that stripe in perspective on that side of the building. All right, we are done with what we want to do for now, other than we're going to put her name on the other side of the building. So we're going to click up here at the top right, OK, to get out of this window. And we come back into our main document in Photoshop. We have a vanishing point layer. If I turn the eyeball off, we're back to having the Franklin sign, no windows, and no accent stripe. If I turn it on, all of those edits are on that layer. So there's the things that we did in perspective. It's pretty wild when you look at it that way to see how much tip there is in this. You don't really notice it. So we did that. All right, we're going to create a 2-dimensional sign right now. So we want to put the word Kate's Cafe over here on the left-hand side, but obviously if we do it just as a normal text layer, it's not going to have any of the vanishing point features, but we have to start this way. So we're going to use our normal type tool, and we're going to use a font. They use Kaflish script. You can do whatever you want. About a 16-point type is fine. And I'm going to click right here above this window, and I'm going to type in Kate's Cafe. Whoops. Kate's Cafe. And I'm going to accept that and just move it over a little bit. And obviously this does not look natural. It's level, but it doesn't match the perspective of this. So yes, you could take free transform and do some things, but you've already set up this perspective grid, so why not use it? Vanishing Point, however, only works with raster art. And right now, our type, which is still vector art, meaning we can make it bigger or smaller yet, it can't work with that. We need to convert this into just pixels first. The easiest way to grab just these pixels is to come over here to your Kate's Cafe layer and command click on the thumbnail. And that's going to put marching ants around this type, exactly sized as it is. And we're going to copy those pixels. So command C. All right, we can now deselect the marching ants here on Kate's Cafe. And if we want, we can even turn off the visibility of this. What we now need to do is go back to our vanishing point layer, and then we specifically need to re-enter that vanishing point pop-up dialog box. So once we're on that layer, to get back into that, Option Command V, which is Alt Control V on a PC, and look, we're back in our vanishing point. And now we're going to paste those pixels into this. So just a Command V to paste the pixels. And they end up way up here, which seems weird, but it's no big deal. So we're now going to drag this grid. And once we get it down here, look what happened. Once we got it on our grid, it tipped and it behaves. And it's definitely stretched. We're going to have to do some tweaking, but there it is. So we're going to position it on here. While we have it still selected, we're going to choose our transform tool, which is this one, or T would have done the same thing. And then if we need to do some transforming, we can do whatever we need to do here, make it a little bit better, position it over. We have to do all this now because once we say okay to this, it's a done deal. So position it how you want it. And once we deselect this, we can no longer move it or resize it. So be happy with it and Command D to deselect it and say OK. And we've now made, there it is, we've now made those changes in Vanishing Point, and it looks pretty authentic. The other parts of this chapter, if you're following along in the book, some of the other things they wanted us to do were to clone out the for rent signs, so they weren't there anymore, and then just tone down, darken all the reflections in here to make it look a little bit nicer. So the end picture that you see on page 208 in your book, they've just done those last couple of steps. They don't deal with, they have nothing to do with vanishing points, so I'm just going to stop right here. And that is it for the vanishing point. You can save this file if you want, or be done with it, and that's it.